today. Hello, everybody. Maybe in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we'll also have other colleagues joining the room here. It was a longer lunch break. Hi, Luigi. Hi, Miguel. Hi, Sotiris. Yeah, now we can see. Okay, so I will start by introducing myself. I'm Cristian Pațachia. I'm the manager, the development and innovation manager inside the technology team, Orange Romania. It is my pleasure to moderate this panel for today, European Cybersecurity Competence Center. It's okay now? Hello. So I said that it is my pleasure today to moderate this panel called European Cybersecurity Competence Center. It's a hot topic for today. We saw this also in the introductory panels in the morning and also in Mr. Duncan Pano's speech in the morning. Close to me we have Duncan Pan and Radu Stănescu, and in the online with an online presence we have Mr. Miguel González Sancho, Mr. Luigi Rebuffi, and Mr. Sotiris Ioannidis. I will introduce each of them and then I will just ask to present on the topic for today. First of all, I would like to thank the Romanian Cybersecurity National Directorate and also Mr. Câmpean for inviting me here to moderate the panel. It's a panel with a nice speaker lineup, and I do hope to have a lot of maybe new information regarding the presence of this EU agency, cybersecurity agency in Bucharest, and also maybe to have some conclusion at the end regarding the next step. I will make a short introduction, maybe for the people which are not so familiar with the topic. On 9th December 2020, the European Council voted to locate the EU Future Cybersecurity Research Hub in Bucharest. The European Cybersecurity Industrial Technology and Research Competence Center, as it is formally known, is a key part of the planned European Cybersecurity Competence Network and Center, which aims to help the EU continue to build the capacity necessary to secure the digital single market. The Competence Center will seek to achieve its overall mission by setting up and helping to coordinate the National Coordination Center network and also the cybersecurity competence community, an important enabler, and by implementing cybersecurity related financial support from the Horizon Europe and also Digital Europe programs, so the funds type of activity. Now, the European Cybersecurity panel for today, the panel we have today, discussion will try to explore both how Europe proposes to achieve its cybersecurity objective over the coming years, as well as the role of the industrial and academic cybersecurity community across Romania. So I will first introduce the first speaker, which I hope to have it with us, unfortunately online. Mr. Miguel González Sancho. I will start with Luigi, and then we will. Okay, so I will. It is a small change in the speaker presence. So we will start with Mr. Luigi Rebuffi, Secretary General and founder of European Cybersecurity Organization. Mr. Luigi Rebuffi is the Secretary General and founder of the ESCO, as well as founder and Secretary General of the Women for Cyber Foundation. After graduating in nuclear engineering from Politecnico di Milano, Italy, he worked in Germany on the development of high-power microwave systems for the next thermonuclear fusion reactor. He continued his career at Thomson Thales in France, where he took an increasing responsibility for European affairs, R&D in different sectors, telecom, industrial, medical, scientific, becoming in 2003 Director for European Affairs for the civilian activities of the group. He created a European Organization for Security and coordinated its establishment in 2007, being its CEO for 10 years. Until 2016, and for 6 years, he was an advisor to the European Commission for the EU Security Research Programme and president of the steering board of the French Association for Security Research. In 2016, was one of the founders of the ESCCO and signed with the European Commission the CPPP on cybersecurity. In 2019, he created the Women for Cyber Foundation to promote participation of women in cybersecurity and became its Secretary General and member of the administrative body. In 2020, he was nominated in the list of the IFSEC Global Influencer in Security Executive. I will kindly ask Mr. Luigi to share with us his view on building this competence center and also on the community, because I know that he is very involved in building and also creating and animating the cybersecurity community. So please, Mr. Luigi.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me in the discussion. I'm sorry I cannot be present there. I just came back to Paris from Nuremberg, where I had a number of discussions. I'm actually, these days, I'm somehow doing something similar to what I've done before creating EXO, before starting the PPP. You know, going around Europe and try to understand what is expected to, what are the next steps to be expected. I was actually in Bucharest last time in May 2016, just before 1 month before the creation of EXO. And indeed, with the same logic, try to understand what are the expectations from different countries on what should be built up. And already at that time, we saw that it was good to create this PPP, this EXO with the Commission and so on, but there was a very important need to develop national approaches, national gatherings. And this is something which is expected to be to become true through this national coordination center of the new regulation. So for me, one really, if I have to underline already jumping up on the topic, one of the most important thing will be not only the creation of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center in Bucharest, which will focus the attention and will coordinate progressively the activity, but also the creation in the different countries of this national coordination center, because the reality, the real activity is not happening in Brussels, is not happening even in the capital sometimes. The reality is happening on site, locally, regionally, nationally, and then going up to European level. So one of the big role that we will have for the center, but also for, I would say for us, for EXO, is indeed, as you said, Christian, is to bring together the community. So, and the community can be the community at national level because of the community which is building up around this national coordination center, but also the community that we have seen already in the last more than 5 years where EXO is operating. So we brought together already a number of stakeholders, which we can call the beginning of this community, and they belong to different categories. So we don't have only national communities, but we have only, let's say, different categories of community. We have the initial one for the PPP, which is the researcher, the university, or the people doing research in the companies. But also we have the community, and we see the community of SMEs, the community of what we are developing now in EXO, the Chief Information Security Officers, which are the user. We see the threats, but also which are defining the needs. We have the community of the investors coming up. You know, with EXO, we're trying to develop investment fund of 1 billion euro, and that was the topic of discussion yesterday also in Nuremberg. How we can bring together this fund, and I'm pleased to announce that we have started now a study with the European Investment Bank, supported by the Basque region also, as from the public sector, to define the needs for investments in the cybersecurity sector. And so there are different communities. And one of the tasks, of course, in the regulation, as you know, is to bring together this community and to have it and to create added value for the community. It's not only about the traditional approach for research that we have seen in the past in Horizon 2020. Now, the center, but also all the different stakeholders, and EXO will continue its activity, will be to bring together these stakeholders with the help of the national center, with the help of the center in Bucharest, and provide added value going to the market. So this is the Digital Europe program. And we have seen also within EXO that there are two main trends, three main trends. One is to gather the community. The second is to having the community working together on policy issues, on recommendation to the Parliament, to the Commission, to Member States, and so on, or to the ecosystem in general, let me say. And the third one is more going to the market, with concrete action, like this, the Women for Cyber, so supporting the inclusion of women in the cybersecurity domain, like the fund that I mentioned for supporting for investment in SMEs and startups, like the activity we are starting also for the CISO, but also other activities that we are now under development. So all these activities which go to the market and which will be supported by the Digital Europe program as well, in particular. And here we have a challenge with the center, I think, because we are changing here. We are looking at the project and investment in a different way than in the past. It's not only research, and it's important to show it right, because we need more investment. The investment from the Commission, the 2.5 billion, which are, let me say, approximately, which are expected to be invested by the Commission up to 2027 on cybersecurity, on Digital Europe program and Horizon Europe. Let me say they are not enough. Clearly not enough if we want to be a protagonist at global level. When we see the investment in the US and in other countries, really we need more investment. This investment can come in a voluntary way, as it is written in the regulation, from member states, but also we have to look at possible investment from the private sector. And we have to find the best synergies for the investment between the public and the private. And we have to find a good project. So, but this project shouldn't be simply limited to research or to early stage. As really the intention is to bring them to the market and to have the results really work and grow the competitiveness of our, let's say, of Europe, looking also at the main target of increasing strategic autonomy. So this is the big challenge for me of the center. And to build up the community, I would already say that, okay, we are working on gathering different kind of stakeholders, public and private, in the last more than 5 years. We have also the 4 pilots in Competence Center, which are active, gathering the different stakeholders. And we are looking, and we are discussing now with the different pilots how we can put together forces and bring something, bring a proposal and show that we can build a unique global community which is really can benefit to everybody and bring added value to the community. the society, but also strong contribution to the center. So I don't know I think it's enough for the moment. I don't know if there are questions in the future following.
Thank you, Mr. Rebuffi. I also encourage the people which are watching us online and also the people which are here with us in the room to put questions using whether the Teams chat or a question directly. Meanwhile, I have a question also for Mr. Rebuffi. Speaking about the community and also understanding that you are involved in together with the European Investment Bank in raising €1 billion for investment. In the community. I'm wondering if you can share with us some insight regarding the specific needs and barriers, challenges that need to be addressed to help the startups, the technology startups, particularly in cybersecurity technology startups and the SMEs. If you can share some ideas on this point, which is still linked to the community.
Well, of course, this was exactly the topic that we have discussed in the panel yesterday. In Nuremberg, and with the presence of representatives from German ministries and also CEOs from different companies. And the challenge, we had also representatives from SMEs present. And one of the challenges that, on one hand, the SMEs, they want to have investments. They want to have investment. At the same time, they're afraid to lose the control. Too quickly. At the end, they want to grow. They want to, if they are a startup, they want to be stabilized. And for this, I would say the consensus is that to be stabilized, they need money from investors, but they need also some contracts. They need contracts, especially from, if possible, from the public administration. So public procurement is also an important support for the growth of SMEs. Of course, investments, you can start from few millions up to 10, 15 millions. And this is one of the challenges that we have in Europe, is that beyond these 10, 15 millions, we are still not used. We don't have the fund in Europe. This is the reason why we are looking for something bigger. And the big problem is that if we invest only in startups or at the beginning of the story of an SME, then when the SME will be mature enough and will be ready for the market, then there are non-European investors which are coming and they are buying this company. So Europe is not benefiting of all the investment that we have done in the early stage, and the competence and the people there is a risk they're going away. So this is one of the big challenges that we have in Europe. And at the same time, we have to find a good solution, as I said, investors, of course, but also contracts to the SME and startups.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rebuffi. Waiting other questions, or we can also continue. And depending on the questions on online or physical, we can turn back maybe at the end of the session. Thank you very much. I will move slightly to the second speaker. Hopefully Mr. Miguel González Sancho is connected, is online. I will introduce Mr. González Sancho. Mr. González Sancho is since July 2018 the head of the unit Cybersecurity Technology and Capacity Building at the European Commission, where he has worked for over 20 years, mainly on EU policy and research and development and innovation programs relating to digital technologies, and before on telecoms regulations and trade policy. His previous responsibilities in the Commission included Head of Unit for e-Health, Head of Unit for Administration and Finance, Deputy Head of Unit for Policy Coordination, Deputy Head of the Unit for Inclusions, and Member of Cabinet of European Commission Vice President. Miguel holds degrees in Law, International Relations, Business Administration, Accounting, and Auditing. I also invite Mr. Miguel to give his view and to share with us the feedback regarding the building of this competence center in Bucharest, and also maybe the challenges to support a global and open cyberspace, including this new agency, European Union agency in Bucharest. So, Mr. Miguel, please.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Very good. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation, and then also apologies for joining late. I actually mixed up the Bucharest and the Brussels time, which is not a very good excuse, I know, but it's what happened to me. So sorry about that. So I will give I will give a bit of a status on the center, on the establishment of the center. I know that many people here, at least certainly the fellow panelists, they know almost as much as I do about the center, and also some people in the audience. But I will give my a bit the latest, let's say. So, well, we have legally the center exists since the end of June. So we have the center is there, let's say, from a legal perspective. But now, of course, the practical aspects are of setting up a new body are quite challenging. I would say, as an introduction, I like to do these two put the challenges in two categories. One is having to do with just setting up a new body and structure, and actually a new.
Sorry, so there is a small noise behind, so maybe we can clear this up. I'm kindly ask the organizer if he can stop the mic for others.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I would say two main categories of challenges that we have with the center. One is from the point of view, let's say, of setting it up, the architecture. It's not just about the center, by the way. It's the whole system, the center, the national coordination centers, and the community. Set all of that up. It's one first set of challenges, and then making it live, as it were. So really filling it with its mandate and mission, which I will call. It's to decide on strategic priorities for investment on cybersecurity, then pool from different sources the funding, and put the funding into those priorities. So those are the two sets of challenges. So first, starting with the, let's say, more administrative, as the Commission actually has the responsibility of running the center until it will become, it will reach its autonomy. So I'm actually now the interim director until there will be a finally appointed director, and so on. And so basically, we are supporting with the Commission, let's say, capacities. We are supporting what the center will do in future. I give a very concrete example. Now, there's currently a call for proposals open under the Horizon Europe program for research and innovation, or until 21st of November. So the Commission will be doing all this evaluation of all these proposals, similarly with the depth call for proposals that will open. And then what we're doing is to prepare the all the decisions that the EU body needs to function. And we will have the first official meeting of the governing board of the competence center on the 20th of October. So this month, a bit later. So there will be a whole set of decisions, starting by the rules of procedure. The rules of procedure of the governing board, in order to be able to operate. It might not sound very attractive to recall all these things, but we absolutely need to go through all the requirements, so that in particular we are able to start recruiting staff soon for the center. So that requires a number of administrative decisions to be adopted. Then in parallel, there's also of course the let's say the cooperation process with the Romanian authorities about many things, in particular the building where the center will be settled, and so forth. So not always challenging, as I said, to set a new EU body. As I said, the first meeting of the competence center will take place soon. The vacancy notice of the executive director has been published and closed the term. I think I wouldn't be mistaken if I assume that probably there's even some of the potential candidates that are following this this event, that might be possible. And the selection will take place over the next months. It's a process that takes several months. Similarly, for the chair of the governing board, will be one of the members. From the governing board will become chair. Somebody from a member state, because I can already confirm that the commission will not stand up for chair of the governing board. So that's a lot of activity from, let's say, the more administrative side. Important aspect I mentioned before, the competence center is the center, but also the network of national coordination centers. It's a very important piece in this proposal. We shall be having very soon finally the guidance from the Commission on the let's say the capacity for the national coordination centers to manage EU funding. That will be adopted next week, and that will there will be a process for member states to appoint the national coordination centers, for the Commission to assess their, as I said, their capability for managing EU funding, and there will be a call for proposals with funding from the Digital Europe program next year, towards the beginning of next year, to support with funding, with additional funding, national coordination centers. Then there's the aspect of the community that Luigi has touched upon, and other speakers will also touch upon, which is directly related, of course, to the national coordination centers. That's something that will have to be also structured throughout next year. And there, the work that has already been done by EXO in particular, by the 4 pilots that have already been mentioned, by ENISA, which has already done a lot of work. So we will have to see how we connect these dots. Then going more into the substance, as I said before, the center is about collectively member states together with the Commission, but then consulting with relevant stakeholders, in particular through the advisory board, is about identifying the priorities for EU for investment in cybersecurity to support cybersecurity policies. This is what the center is there about, and then to implement, and in particular the relevant mobilizing the relevant funding from the relevant programs to execute those priorities. In that regard, we will start having very soon preliminary discussions about what we call the strategic agenda for the center. And then from that, the work programs, the multi-annual work program and the annual work program will be derived. So, because we didn't have a center yet, the first work program, cyber for Horizon Europe and from the Digital Europe program, have been prepared by the Commission, so that is already there. The center cannot do that until they have their autonomy, the financial autonomy. But the programs are there, and the center will start will take over when it will have its capacity. I recall there's no staff yet with the center, but we want to move to that those recruitments very soon, with that priority to the executive director, but there will be other people that will come early. Before that, it's really the Commission who is supporting it. We have Horizon Europe is already there for cyber, and the Digital Europe program shall be adopted finally very soon, and it will include a very substantial, a significant, let's say, part of cybersecurity. This is what we will also start to discuss very soon with the governing board, the competence center, on the basis of this program that the Commission has prepared, because it had to. But then the idea, and that's really the other big challenge that was mentioned before, that the center really becomes, assumes really its role, which is to have these strategic discussions, so that member states, they will bring to the table what they are doing at the national level, and we will look there for what are the similarities, the complementarities that might exist, and on some particular topics, several member states can come to the table with a particular projects or proposals for funding, which could be then complemented by EU funding. That whole dynamic is just about to start. As I said, operationally, in terms of political discussions, we will be only starting this month, but hopefully we will enter very soon into cruising speed so that the strategic discussions can already take place. And then in parallel, the steps will be taken in order to to set up the national coordination centers. I know that some member states are quite advanced on this. Really establish the network, somehow we plan to very soon come up also with a dedicated meeting, specific workshop on national coordination centers, and then the community set up. So I hope that's as much as I wanted to say now, not to be longer. I hope you could hear me okay. There was some noise in the back.
Yeah, it was a small noise in the background on your side probably.
Okay, I finish here. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I'm also asking again if there are questions, please shoot on the Teams directly, and I will take it and I will pass it to the right speaker. Now, thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. I will go to the third speaker, Mr. Sotiris Ioannidis. I will present him, and I will also kindly ask colleagues from the organizer side to display the presentation, because Mr. Sotiris also will share some slides with us. Meanwhile, Mr. One moment. I don't have. So I don't have the profile of Mr. Sotiris. It's just that he's the deputy coordinator of Concordia Consortium, and I'm also kindly asked Mr. Sotiris to share with us the objective of Concordia and also the alignment with the competence center from the European Union, which is open in Bucharest. So please, Mr. Sotiris.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes, we can hear you.
I do have some slides prepared, just for the benefit of the audience, if they want to actually get the slides and use them later on. That's why I prepared them. I can do the sharing if you want.
Yes, one moment. I'm kindly asking colleagues from the organizer to give you the presenter role.
Okay. In the meantime, hi Luigi, hi Miguel.
Yes, maybe you can tell us something about you, as we don't have your profile, your full details on the profile, so please.
So I'm an associate professor at the Technical University of Crete. I'm also deputy coordinator of the Concordia project. I do research in security, privacy. I'm very experienced in the field. And I'm here to present Concordia, one of the 4 pilot projects, and also hopefully say some things that can form a link between the community, because the 4 pilots represent the community essentially, and how our efforts can be maybe adopted or adjusted by the competence center in a helpful manner, because the point is to help as much as we can. Should I share or should we do it?
I guess you have the presenter role. Yes.
Okay, let me see how I can do it then. Maybe, can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can see it. It's just that you need to put it in the slideshow.
Okay, I'm trying to do that. And it is, yeah, I think it's
perfect. Thank you.
So, a bit of a background before I go into the solutions and the suggestions we have as a project. Just a bit of background about us. We're the biggest of the 4 cybersecurity pilots, 53 partners, but we're actually growing because we're inboarding partners that are actually bringing in their own budget into the project. We're fairly balanced between academia and industry, but we also have public bodies and other types of organizations like ministries in the consortium. And we represent 16 EU member states and associate countries, and also the UK. So the vision of Concordia when we started was the integration of a sort of fragmented community in cybersecurity in Europe. There are excellent researchers and excellent companies that do great work and great products in terms of security in Europe, but we felt that this is sort of isolated in many cases, and this was a great opportunity via the pilots to bring the communities together and create these big consortia that brought people from around Europe that work on common goals in solving real security problems in Europe. So the goal is to build this strong European cybersecurity competence network. Now, of course, as a project, we have some specific objectives that I'm going to go over very quickly, and then focus on the approach we take and how we feel that this can be supplemental to what the Competence Center is doing, and hopefully find some use to our work. So very briefly, Concordia's objective is about building a European secure, resilient, and trusted cybersecurity ecosystem, bring in the expertise to European policymakers and industry, because we have excellent people in our consortia, but also the other pilots, top-notch people, and provide our view of the cybersecurity roadmap for Europe. And all the pilots work on roadmaps, and there's overlaps, but there's also complementarity. So we feel that policymakers are going to get a nice holistic view of where the community feels that Europe should be investing in the future. Furthermore, we do focus on products. So we have companies in the project that build innovative solutions. So on one hand, but on the other hand, we do have strong presence in terms of research and virtual labs and skill building and so on and so forth. So there's a pillar of innovation and industry, but also research and innovation. And finally, I want to establish this European education ecosystem. So mapping the competencies and where people can get the skills to make successful cybersecurity professionals in Europe. So this was like the spiel from the project, but what we're actually building and constructing as a framework for all this, in order to make it useful, hopefully, Competence Center, is what we call the Concordia Service Board. And this has 8 different pillars, and I really like this slide, and that's why I wanted to share my slides, because it really captures all the aspects that Concordia is bringing in, and we feel that it's actually quite helpful. I'm going to go very, very briefly over these 8 points, because again, in the interest of time, I don't want to monopolize the panel. And I'm going to start by what we call Concordia Explores. So this is focusing on the research that we're doing in cybersecurity, and the improvements, the tangible improvements we're getting out of this strong research and deep research that is going on. The way we approach it, Concordia approach it, is these pillars that start from the device, what we call device-centric, and goes all the way up to the user. Because, of course, we need to have security solutions and security research in all layers of the ecosystem. The other part that I said is the industry aspect. So what we call Concordia develops. And what Concordia's approach is to create, first of all, vertical industrial pilots in specific critical sectorial regions, but also have these cross-sectorial pilots that cover all of them and provide horizontal solutions that can be adopted in multiple sectors. Specifically, and I'm not going to go into the details of what we're doing, but as domains, we focus on telecom, finance, e-mobility, e-health, and vehicular communication. These are the vertical pilots. Now, horizontally, as I said, there are solutions that can be applied to many sectors. And there we have 2 big horizontal pilots, which is threat intelligence is one, and the DDoS clearinghouse. So we feel that these solutions can be applied to other sectors beyond the 5 ones that we are exploring in the Concordia project. And this forms the industrial connection with the previous pillar of research. The next pillar of Concordia, what the service of Concordia is what we call Concordia Explains. And this is to provide information on what's going on in the domain of cybersecurity, but in a much broader sense. So both research, economic aspects, legislation, and so on and so forth. So, so the community can easily find the latest info about this domain. The next pillar is what we call Concordia Talks. And here we have the advantage of cybersecurity experts that we have in the consortium can provide special information on various topics of cybersecurity. But that you can, so it's not that broad information, but really deep knowledge that you get specific topics that may be technical or business or. The next pillar is what we call Concordia Education, and education is big in Concordia. Skill building is extremely important in Europe. We need to train generation of cybersecurity experts. We are very proud of our master students and our PhD students that are part of the Concordia ecosystem, but also even undergrad students that are participating in some capacity in the project. And with the Concordia Education effort, what we're doing is building a map. And we have a map online where you can find courses around Europe and what they offer, the course calendar, any skills that you want to, that you're interested in, you can find on this map and see where you can go and get these skills. And for every course, you get details about, what is the weight? Is it like more technical, more business, more hands-on, and so on and so forth. Next, we have Concordia Promotes, which is about, can you still hear me?
Yes, I confirm we can hear you.
Am I still with you?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Concordia Promotes, and this is about career development. So yeah, you got the skills, but you want to build a career on that, and also promoting diversity. What we run in a very strong effort within Concordia about women in cyber, and we have some excellent scientists there that are leaders in the domain of cybersecurity, and we're actually very lucky to have these great scientists in the Concordia Consortium, and we promote these activities on diversity really aggressively within our community. I'm ending now with a couple more pillars, which is Concordia Assists. This is related to the business aspect. So we have partners within Concordia that provide advice and guidance on startups. So how you can build your company, how you invest your energies in terms of, and your efforts in terms of how you build your product, how you bring it to market, because we do suffer a bit in Europe in terms of bringing excellent solutions to fruition in markets. So other countries and other regions are very good at this, and we don't lack in terms of talent or technology, but we do struggle sometimes in bringing things to market, but I think we're actually getting better. Finally, the last pillar is Concordia Connects, and it is about expanding the community and reaching beyond the tight circle, even though it's a big consortium of Concordia, to other organizations and other stakeholders, and we interact with them and get information from them. So these are the 8 pillars. Now, complementary to these 8 pillars, we do have some other activities, which is the virtual labs. So we provide infrastructure for people to get training. We have a number of cyber ranges within Concordia. We have the various stakeholder groups that feed in info to the project, and this links to what we call Concordia Connects. And finally, we have our newsletters, that disseminate this information to everyone in Europe. This was like I rushed through things, and again, I want to provide the slides to all your attendees, and we hope that this approach could be useful to the Cybersecurity Competence Center in terms of how you structure things and how you reach out to the community, how you create maps, both in education and in road mapping, and so on and so forth. So with this, I'm going to put a full stop here. And again, thank you very much for inviting me here. Unfortunately, Gabi is a bit sick, so she could not attend. So I took the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Ioannidis. A quick question for you, and it's a nice information that you share with us. A quick question from my side. I also on Orange Romania, I'm also collaborating on several Horizon Project 2020, and now we are looking to the new calls, especially in the cybersecurity that's starting this year on the Horizon Europe. So which kind of, what is the type of the collaborations that the Concordia members projects are looking in regards to the Competence Center from Bucharest? And especially that here in the panel, here physically, you have Mr. Duncan Panu and Mr. Radu Stănescu, which are the member of the Competence Center Governing Board. So maybe you can, I don't know, tell us what are you thinking about on the short term or medium term in terms of collaboration?
So first of all, we can provide an initial network of experts, both in industry and academia, but also in policy, that the Competence Center can draw on and get their experiences and expertise to any of their activities that they're planning over the next few years. So that's one thing. The other thing is, as I said, this structured approach to specific things. So if the Competence Center decides to maybe create a branch, and again, I don't know how this is going to evolve. Miguel is probably much better suited to talk about this. But if they decide to promote somehow innovation, we already built an office that tries to take results that are being built within Concordia and push them closer to market. So that's one thing. The newsletter is there, so the community is there, and we can already start communicating with people. So if you want us to link you, if the Competence Center wants to be linked to the community, we can provide the links immediately. So they don't need to go up and start building these lists. The activities that we have on women in cyber, I believe that are going to be a great fit to the activities of the cybersecurity Competence Center. Again, I'm not ordering things. I'm just saying various aspects that I think they can link easily to the activities of the center. Again, it's just starting, so it's not unclear what their priorities are going to be. But any of these things we can offer. We can go there, we can tell them how it works, we can provide the links, we can provide the technology, we can provide the maps, we can provide the software that we build that tracks like the classes and whatnot, and everything's going to be there to bootstrap it. It's about bootstrapping, hitting the ground running. The center can capitalize on our work, and not just our work. I want to include the other pilots as well. I'm not here to advertise Concordia, so I want this to be very clear. I'm not here advertising. I'm just saying that the community is there. And it really wants to help. So take advantage of us, advantage in a good sense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ioannidis, and thank you for being with us today. I'm trying to take a question, the first question from the chat, from the Teams chat, which is addressing to Mr. Guillermo Gonzalez. So I will read the question from Heiko Sibel. Is it already possible to estimate when the ACCC will take over the management of the funding programs, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe, from the EU Commission? So, Mr. Miguel, if you can give an answer here. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. There is no, let's say, like simple answer to this because, well, there are different programs to start with. That's an important distinction. Legally, the treatment of Digital Europe program and Horizon Europe program is different, i.e. that means that well, the Digital Europe program, according to the regulation, the cyber part will be managed by the Competence Center, managed in the sense of doing the programming, deciding about the priorities and preparing for programs, whereas for Horizon, it's a bit different for Horizon Europe in that the responsibility for programming will be determined by the extent to which there will be, let's say, complementary funding from member states. So there might be a situation in the future where part of the funding of Horizon is decided in the center and part is decided in, let's say, the normal way with the program committee. The normal way where there is no a dedicated structure. That is the part about programming. As I said before, the Commission has made the current programming for Digital Europe and Horizon 2021-22. The next one will be done already by the Centre, I repeat, for the Digital Europe program, and then partly possibly for Horizon, and that work can, the preparations for the next work program can start. Then there is the part of the execution of the program, so, calls for proposals, evaluations, and so forth, which requires, of course, that, to have staff, that the IT work, and so on and so forth. So that might still take some time. I always hesitate to give a date for these things because many things can happen. But typically this kind of new EU bodies would take something like 18 months or something like that to be fully up and running. And I have to say that that is for very often for entities which are in Brussels. In Bucharest, it might be more of a challenge, but I would like to reverse the challenge. And let's say if by the end of next year we can have that sort of autonomy, that would be an excellent result. So my answer is a mix of wish, of hope that we can really go fast, but also of prudence. It takes time to set up a new EU body, basically.
Thank you. So I understood that wishful thinking is maybe to have it maybe beginning of the next year, and the reality will say that maybe will be on end of the next year, right?
Well, beginning of next year, I can already tell you. I mean, let's face it. I mean, things took time with the negotiation. Since the proposal was on the table, but sometime next year it will be excellent to have this transition. Let's say this transfer. Let's see how things go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now we will move to the next speaker, and I will present Mr. Dan Câmpean, the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate Interim Director and also member of the ACCC Governing Board. Dan accumulated over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity, risk management in Brussels, Bucharest, and internationally. He led professional teams supporting European institutions, national cyber competent authorities, and large corporates in defining and implementing cybersecurity policies, strategies, operational and technical measures. I can confirm also that he worked with our colleagues from Brussels, Orange, Belgium. In May 2020, he was appointed as General Director of the CERTRO by decision of the Romanian Prime Minister, with the mission to transform the organization. Dan is the member of the Management Board of the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, member of the Governing Board of the European Cybersecurity Industrial Technology and Research Competence Center. He is also the chairman of the Governance Board of the EU CEF Telecom Cybersecurity Program. Now, I also have some proposals for Dan, because he is very open with the
I'm mega open for questions and for
questions and maybe guidance. So, Dan, we know that one important component of the ACC is the collaboration with the member states, represented by the national coordination centers, who together with European Commission are partners of the center. The first step has been to set up a governing board, which will be ultimately responsible for making all decisions. So, please, from your role of member of the ACC governing board, can you share with us some of the challenges that you are facing in relations with the European Cybersecurity Competence Network?
That's a very tricky question. The point is, and I think Miguel also mentioned, the board is still to be convened in a formal way, which will happen next week. So until now it was quite a lot of background and preparatory work. But I think the core of the question being how ECCC is going to work with the National Coordination Center, with the member states. Let's not forget, according to the regulation, each EU member state has to designate, to appoint, to create its National Coordination Center before 29th of December this year. The reason being very, very simple, to have some local bodies under member states' authority and sovereignty, of course, that will be point of contacts, primary actors, key actors that will interact and work together with the ECCC. Of course, still a lot of work to be done in order to refine and define and clarify the way those national coordination centers are going to work with the ECCC. My personal view is that this will be a very interesting discussion topic for the board itself, on how it's going to happen, how do we want this to go on, and so on. The element that we need to never forget is actually the objectives of the center, and how NCCs and the center itself will be able to deliver and to fulfill those objectives in the coming period. And I must say, very straightforward, the expectations are super high from everyone. I mean, from the businesses, from academia, from the research community, from the member states themselves, from the European bodies as well. So we all want that the competence center will be very successful in enhancing cybersecurity capabilities and capacity and knowledge and infrastructure for the benefit of the industry in the broader sense, but also, let's not forget, of the small and medium enterprises and research communities. That's clearly and black on white written in the regulation. For this, in all honesty, will not be only the center itself that will have to play ball and that will have to cooperate, collaborate, and work very hard. Will be the national coordination centers as well, will be the executive director. At this moment, Miguel is playing this role on behalf of the Commission. He accepted to do this, but the moment an executive director will be selected, will be a main task for this professional. And let's not forget, as long as the center it's designed, it's planned to contribute to a strong European cybersecurity ecosystem that, as clearly stated objectives, shall bring together all the relevant stakeholders, this is something that we all have to work in order to achieve. It's easier said than do it, but I truly believe that we have very good chances of success on one hand, but also there is a real risk that the center itself may fail to deliver up to expectations. Of course, this has to be measured in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but also let's not forget the expectations are super high. So all the people majority of the professionals, not all, I discuss with, they all stated towards me exactly the same. We want the center to be up and running very fast. We want the center to be very active, to launch, of course, and to promote a lot of great topics, a lot of great ideas, a lot of great programs and projects on research, innovation, awareness, etc. All the domains actually that the center it's responsible with according to the regulation. And it's absolutely obviously that this cannot happen in isolation. So we shall not, all of us, expect from the center to deliver all this and from its board and executive director and the team. But we have to acknowledge that member states have responsibilities through the board with representatives and deputy representatives of the member states in the board, but also throughout the national coordination centers. And as a matter of fact, maybe most of you that follow this topic very closely for your country, you know, it's a variety of ways in which member states created, designated those national coordination centers. So there is no one size fits all. Almost every single member state approach it in a different manner, which is normal. It's a national specific approach, I would say, for creating the NCC. But at the end of the day, we'll all have to make it working, and we'll have to deliver together fast, and we have to see results coming, ideally already since 2022. So maybe at the end of the year, we shall have the first steps, the first programs, the first projects launched, the first grants already granted through the center, which is, it's a challenge as a matter of fact. Now one additional reflection I had, because it was mentioned by the previous panelists, it's quite a lot of effort, funding, investment from the European Union in research and innovation for cybersecurity. My personal view is that whatever may be on the table as available funding, it may be still not enough. So if we want the European Union to be that relevant major player in the field of cybersecurity, in particular research innovation, it may be that whatever ambitions we set, and they were set by regulation today with regards to the center, those may need to be exceeded quite fast. Of course, will be contribution from the member states, and here I invite my colleagues from the board and the representative of the member states to not forget the regulation provides also for national contribution to this research and innovation and so on. And it's also very, very key that this conversation happen already at the level of the member states. So we don't only expect what the center will share and what the center will launch as and will support as initiatives, as programs and projects, but we have to think very seriously about how prepared are we at national level, how fast and how far we want to cooperate with other countries. Because if we want those projects, those programs of the center to be impactful and successful, they have to be, most of them, large-scale, Europe-wide or at least regional impact programs. So it's a lot of thinking that has to go in that direction. Will be also, from this perspective, quite a lot of pressure and expectations from the strategic advisory group that will have to be set up, established, and I know as a matter of fact it's one of the most, let's say, sensitive topic. There is a lot of keen, genuine interest from the industry into this strategic advisory group, from academia, from the research community, of course, from the member states as well. So still a lot of governance-related aspects to be set, a lot of preparedness to be done, preparation to be done from the side of the member states. This coming, of course, on the top of all the effort that at this moment the Commission is putting into the center, and also on top of the effort that member states, through their representatives in the board at this stage, starts to put in the center.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, moving more on a more regional approach, and also thinking about the resources we have in Romania, the type of the startups, the spin-off, the academia you mentioned, and also the different programs such as Unbreakable Romania, DevCamp, Romanian Cybersecurity Challenge, and also the team that is participating since several years in the European Cybersecurity Challenge. What do you believe that will be the impact for the local ecosystem? And here I'm not speaking only about purely cybersecurity, but also the startups, the academic, the research project, to have this center in Romania, to have the coordination from Romania. At least from Orange, I know that our colleagues from Belgium, they are looking to us in terms of participating in different events and different type of activities, but I'm wondering now for you, because now you are in the proper position to think about what will be the impact in the next, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years for our local ecosystem.
Before I'm answering straightforward to your question, let's not forget the center will have primarily 2 vehicles that will be used. Horizon Europe and Digital Europe, the cybersecurity part, of course, of those. by design, those programs are programs that invite the ecosystem, invite everyone to collaborate. So really diverse organizations, mainly research, of course, but businesses as well, and governmental actors as well, and so on, to really team up, share ideas, come with great ideas of initiatives, programs, projects, for which they get eventually funding. My own experience from past years, when I was quite active in the previous Horizon 2020, currently Horizon Europe, was the following. You need to really be innovative. You really need to be competitive in order to enter and to be successful with those programs. As an organization, smaller or larger, whether it's academic or research or business, it's absolutely important to make the step from the local, from the national level, to at least the regional. I mean, to be known by peers, by colleagues, by competitors, why not, we have to say it, from European Union. You need to pass the message and to be ready internally with the right teams, the right people, with the right vision and the business plan, to be ready to participate into those programs. I must say, and for me it's a personal frustration, there are so many great startups, small and medium enterprises focused on cybersecurity solutions that have brilliant, but really brilliant technical ideas, but organizations that fail completely in scaling up. They are not able to bring these ideas in great, major European projects, together with a cluster of other organizations. And again, some of them may be competitors, but I saw many cases, I did it in the past myself, when competitors simply team up because it's more efficient to pool resources together and to develop a new product, a new service, a new pilot, a new concept, or a new demonstrator. And of course, have European funding for funding this research. Sometimes it's more important and interesting to do like that if you want to do it fast. Some organizations, however, are still thinking in silos, still want to work in isolation and say, hey, this is my product, I build this, who wants to buy it, who wants to use it, who wants to implement it? I think they need really a shift in the mindset. And probably the most important shift and impact, and now I'm answering directly to your question, the most relevant impact that the center will bring on Romanian ecosystem, but not only, on the cybersecurity ecosystem on each and every single European Union member state, the most important impact will be that we'll shout past the message, guys, you need to play ball, you need to team up, you need to collaborate. Because, and I'm choosing carefully my words now, most likely the center will not finance programs that will go exclusively to one organization. Those programs, majority of them, according to the rules, like the rules in the past for Horizon 2020 and so on, will go to groups of organizations. So organizations that are not only innovative and technically proficient and they have great teams, but also organizations that want to break silos and to really collaborate and work together for the greater good, work together to implement and to demonstrate a great idea, a great product, a great building block and so on. So I think that will be probably the most important impact. And those organizations that will refuse to collaborate, refuse to open, refuse to think out of the box, to think outside or outside of the term, oh, me and my city and my region, those organizations will lag behind, while the others will be super successful. I hope.
Yeah, thank you for this insight. I just noted collaboration, especially the scale-up effect of the ACCC. So it will be very important. This is not only collaboration, it's just to expose the startups, the SMEs, now from the cybersecurity, but from my experience with with Orange Fab, which is our corporate acceleration. This is not only on the cybersecurity, it's on different technologies. The scale-up effect and also the investment, but it's not a problem with the money, how it is with going outside. And here, the center can act as a proxy and to expose them to, I don't know, maybe trying to bring more value coming from the other member states, if it's a startup from Romania or if it's a startup from Belgium, for example. And why not to become maybe the next unicorn on the cybersecurity. Thank you very much, Ilan. I'm now going to Radu Stănescu, ACC Governing Board Member for Romania. Radu is the ACC Governing Board Member for Romania, cybersecurity consultant with over 15 years of experience in penetration testing, focused on risk-based vulnerability management and human vulnerability. I'm kindly ask Radu also to state his position and his feedback on coming from the same position as done in the governing board about the impact of the competence center, not only in the local ecosystem, but also in the European Union.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you very much, Dan, for inviting me to this event for, I think it's the third time. Now, coming back to the subject of today, the ECCC panel. So, I'm really happy to be part of this project since I was from the beginning. There was a big part that me and Dan and some other colleagues put up for the candidature of Romania, and to bring it to Romania was a really nice achievement for Romania, I think. Now, in terms of the benefits of the ecosystem, I think there are some silos, as Dan said, that will need to be broken, and especially for some countries, I think this social culture of opening, of sharing with partners, even competitors, or with universities or public organizations, it's something which they will be somehow forced if they want to benefit of the funding of the center. In terms of educational and the academia part, I really think it's going to be a big step up, at least for Romania, and I think there are several other countries where there was not a real blend between private and public sector. Either the public sector speaking of universities, or the public sector speaking of other public utilities or public organizations. From the breaking, this opening, I think it's also a huge benefit in terms of having different cultures involved in the same project. This is something which, as Dan said, probably the center won't fund very many projects where there is only one organization applying for it, but cross-country partnership, public, private, in between different countries, forming different nucleus of projects is definitely something that we're going to support, and I think it's going to be a big benefit in the region, and hopefully will go and increase a little bit the coalition between European countries, and let's start creating more European technology and well, have our own system and infrastructures and software, and keep the talents and the skilled people as much as possible inside the European borders.
Thank you, Radu. We still have time for questions. I'm also addressing our colleagues from the room, if you have questions, and also the colleagues from online. I don't know, Radu, Dan, if you have questions for the others.
Because I don't know if Luigi, I hope he's still online. One of the, let's say, important elements that I like very much to highlight in all conferences, and each time I have the possibility to discuss about this, and Luigi mentioned about this, and I would like to put it a bit in the ECCC context, is the women in cyber. Because, of course, the center as such will invest in research, innovation, but let's not forget research, innovation, etc. will happen thanks to brains, thanks to people. So really the experts, the specialists we have, the researchers. While one of the pain points of the cybersecurity ecosystem in general, it's the still insufficient ability of the ecosystem to attract women to the profession, to attract researchers. I mean, to attract those super high-profile brains that will come with the great ideas and they will push the entire ecosystem ahead and will deliver the innovation that we all expect. And one of my views would be that ECCC as such shall look also in those programs that create a great environment for women, for researchers, for specialists in cybersecurity, to activate, to be active, to let them shine, and so on. And just wanted to shoot a question to you, Luigi. How do you see this? Because you're running a great initiatives, the Women in Cyber, and how do you see ECCC, the center, being or laying the ground for taking initiatives like Women in Cyber and many others that focus on women to the next level?
Yeah. Okay. I hope you hear me. So we have started this Women for Cyber Foundation at European level, but actually we see that there is there's a creation of national chapters. So even you know that in Romania we have 2 requests from 2 different organizations to set up a national chapter Women for Cyber. So there is a strong momentum for women to get organized at national level. We are somehow, and we see that these national chapters are looking first in, let's say, in bringing closer women, bringing closer also to what I would call education, training, this kind of activities. But we still are somehow far from, but this is the first step. Let me say, let's see this as a first step into creating more competence in women doing research. I would say very likely if we start seeing some initial success in mobilizing women in different sectors, we still see the difficulty of women in coming to, let's say, to research project and so on. There are some, but probably this is one of the topics that the center could push, could support, really giving visibility and push more women to participate into innovation in this innovation chain. Very often, well, I don't know why, we see men which are proposing ideas, but still we have to facilitate to the visibility, I would say, because I'm sure women have a lot of ideas as men can have. So probably the center can help this momentum, which is under creation at European level, to give visibility to innovative ideas from women. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I also noted some points or some takeaways from today's panel, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting me. So I will start first. I noted from the first panelist, Mr. Luigi Rebuffi, about what he mentioned about the 1 billion euro investment funds backed by European Investment Bank, which is supposed to target the cybersecurity sector, and also the 3 components, starting also with the women for cybersecurity that are also done mentioned now. Gather the community, help the community to work together. These are somehow the coordinates that we have almost from all the speakers today. Then moving to Sotiris, to Mr. Ioannidis. regarding the type of the collaboration between Concordia and the competence center and all the resources behind, starting from the newsletter with the community of experts. So this is purely to build and to help building and expanding the competence center community, because we need this, not only in Romania here where the center is located, but also in the other member states locations. Moving to Mr. Câmpean, to Dan, he also raised the point about the importance of the strategy advisory group, which is built or will be built from the academia, research community, also SMEs, hopefully startups, but also industrial, so the companies, and the importance behind. Then the challenge on the SMEs to get money and to be visible in Europe, because I will also add here a point that we discover working again in the last 5 years with cybersecurity startups in Romania. They prefer rather to be in Europe and to have here small presence, to go in states and to take money from them, to open locations and headquarters there, and then no more a Romanian startup, no more a Romanian unicorn. It's just another company which we lost in Europe. So it's important also this aspect to support the SMEs, to support the technology and the innovation that is created in the European Union. And then I also enjoy what Radu mentioned about creating more European technology and keeping the technology, keeping the resources in Europe, but I will also say, again, keeping the startups and keeping the competencies here. So thank you very much for your presence here and enjoying everything that you said today, and also appreciate the questions coming from online. And we are quite in time with the panel, so thank you everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Information being shown. One of that was my debit card information. After I got hacked, the steps I took were immediate. I changed my password. I contacted the service providers. I did change my debit card. It is reassuring to have a new debit card which is more safe and more secure. And I also set up a new Wi-Fi system so that the default password and the name can be changed. You shouldn't share your devices with other people. I did change my debit card. It is reassuring to have a new debit card which is more safe and more secure. I would consider myself reasonably knowledgeable when it comes to technology, but after I got hacked, my takeaways are that you shouldn't share your devices with other people. Think before you click. If you get a suspicious looking message, look at the source and contact the service providers. You should always download official apps from certified application store and change your passwords regularly and change your Wi-Fi name as well.
My business has been running online for 8 years. Social media would be a huge part of our business. I got an email through from my social media provider, and it was giving me an option to verify my account. So I clicked in, logged into my account. Within the next half an hour, my phone started to slow down. I noticed that apps that I would normally use weren't working. So I did turn the phone off. I turned my phone back on about 40 minutes later. There was a whole lot of emails that had just come in. When I opened it, I could see that all of my account details had been changed, my username, my password, and my phone number. We then had emails stating that our account had been taken for ransom. They were threatening to delete all of the content, to take the name if we did not respond and pay a ransom within 2 hours. That then whittled down to 1 hour. We realized we were on a countdown, and that's when we started to panic. I realized very quickly, don't interact. We'd had emails stating that our account had been taken for ransom. They were threatening to delete all of the content, to take the name if we did not respond and pay a ransom within 2 hours. The ransom they were asking for was $900. At the time, I very much considered paying it, but at the same time, my husband was looking online and was reading a couple of scenarios where this had happened to somebody else, they paid it and they didn't receive their account back. So I realized very quickly, don't interact. It was devastating to see our account disappear. Not only was that 8 years of work, but it was also the history of our business. We created the new account, and then I went on to my personal account and I recorded a 2-minute video, very briefly telling people what had happened. When I woke up the next morning, that video had been viewed 25,000 times and everybody shared the page. Within 24 hours, we had built up a following of over 25,000. It was like somebody came in, burnt out my business, and then the community came together and built it up the next day. It was absolutely incredible. The advice I would give to people is always think before you click, no matter how legitimate something looks. It was devastating to see our account disappear. Not only was that 8 years of work, but it was also the history of our business. I was aware that hacking was becoming more and more prominent. I didn't expect that it would happen to me. The advice I would give to people is always think before you click. No matter how legitimate something looks, make sure that you click on the sender email. I would also say make sure that you put 2-step authentication on everything. Make sure to use a unique and strong password for each account. Keep them different and use a password manager where you can. As well as reporting to your social media provider or wherever the hacking incident has occurred, you should also report it to the local authorities, because the more these things are reported and the more awareness that is out there of what is happening, the more education is going to be put in place on how to prevent it.
Verificați cu atenție orice propunere de plată online. Nu accesați linkuri trimise de necunoscuți. Nu furnizați datele de pe card. Ele nu se folosesc pentru a primi bani. Raportați orice tentativă de fraudă.
I gave my device to a friend I thought I could trust. And the next day, when I opened up my laptop, romantic music started playing and a pop-up window appeared. It was offering me a cheap upgrade for a service I regularly use. On the pop-up window, there was personal information being shown. One of that was my debit card information, which was frightening to even imagine that someone had access to my debit card information. I was thinking this is something suspicious, so I was gonna close the pop-up window, but it didn't allow me to close the pop-up window. And that was the moment I knew I got hacked. After I got hacked, the steps I took were immediate. Window, there was personal information being shown. One of that was my debit card information. After I got hacked, the steps I took were immediate. I changed my password. I contacted the service providers. I did change my debit card. It is reassuring to have a new debit card which is more safe and more secure. And I also set up a new Wi-Fi system so that the default password and the name can be changed. You shouldn't share your devices with other people. I did change my debit card. It is reassuring to have a new debit card which is more safe and more secure. I would consider myself reasonably knowledgeable when it comes to technology, but after I got hacked, my takeaways are that you shouldn't share your devices with other people. Think before you click. If you get a suspicious looking message, look at the source and contact the service providers. You should always download official apps from certified application store and change your passwords regularly and change your Wi-Fi name as well.
My business has been running online for 8 years. Social media would be a huge part of our business. I got an email through from my social media provider and it was giving me an option to verify my account. So I clicked in, logged into my account. Within the next half an hour, my phone started to slow down. I noticed that apps that I would normally use weren't working. So I did turn the phone off. I turned my phone back on about 40 minutes later. There was a whole lot of emails that had just come in. When I opened it, I could see that all of my account details had been changed, my username, my password, and my phone number. We then had emails stating that our account had been taken for ransom. They were threatening to delete all of the content, to take the name if we did not respond and pay a ransom within 2 hours. That then whittled down to 1 hour. We realized we were on a countdown, and that's when we started to panic. I realized very quickly, don't interact. We'd had emails stating that our account had been taken for ransom. They were threatening to delete all of the content, to take the name if we did not respond and pay a ransom within 2 hours. The ransom they were asking for was $900. At the time, I very much considered paying it, but at the same time, my husband was looking online and was reading a couple of scenarios where this had happened to somebody else, they paid it and they didn't receive their account back. So I realized very quickly, don't interact. It was devastating to see our account disappear. Not only was that 8 years of work, but it was also the history of our business. We created the new account and then I went on to my personal account and I recorded a 2-minute video, very briefly telling people what had happened. When I woke up the next morning, that video had been viewed 25,000 times and everybody shared the page. Within 24 hours, we had built up a following of over 25,000. It was like somebody came in, burnt out my business, and then the community came together and built it up the next day. It was absolutely incredible. The advice I would give to people is always think before you click, no matter how legitimate something looks. It was devastating to see our account disappear. Not only was that 8 years of work, but it was also the history of our business. I was aware that hacking was becoming more and more prominent. I didn't expect that it would happen to me. The advice I would give to people is always think before you click. No matter how legitimate something looks, make sure that you click on the sender email. I would also say make sure that you put two-step authentication on everything. Make sure to use a unique and strong password for each account. Keep them different and use a password manager where you can. As well as reporting to your social media provider or wherever the hacking incident has occurred, you should also report it to the local authorities, because the more these things are reported and the more awareness that is out there of what is happening, the more education is going to be put in place on how to prevent it.
Verificați cu atenție orice propunere de plată online. Nu accesați linkuri trimise de necunoscuți. Nu furnizați datele de pe card. Ele nu se folosesc pentru a primi bani. Raportați orice tentativă de fraudă.
it's
Thank you very much.
He's a
Thank you
system
very much,
engineering
Mr.
manager
Aleku.
at Fortinet.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to
He
the
has a
Effectively
network and
Tackling
security specialist
Cybercrime
for
through
more than 15
Coordinated
years of relevant experience. He
from
joined
the 11th
Fortinet in
edition of the new
2011 as a
Global
pre-sales
Challenges
system
in
engineer,
Cybersecurity
and
Conference.
he's
My name
supporting
is
Romania,
Ioan
Balkans, and
Mihai.
the Adriatic
I'm a
region
cybercrime training
as
officer
part of
at the European Union
Fortinet
Agency for Law
team,
Enforcement
and he
Trainings,
helped
POL, and I
design
will
and
moderate
influence
this
security
panel,
solutions for
which will
data
approach
center,
the
ISP, web
cybercrime
hosting, and other
phenomena.
complex
I'm
network,
truly honored
covering
to
the whole
have in
range
this
of
panel
solutions from
important
next-gen
speakers from
firewall,
different
UTM,
institutions,
IP, denial of
which can
service.
present different perspectives on fighting cybercrime. So we have speakers from the European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Cooperation, Europol, from the Embassy of the United States of America in Romania, from the Cybercrime Program Office of the Council of Europe, CIPROC, the Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism, the ICOT, and from the Romanian Police. Before I'll give the floor to our speakers, I would like to remind you that each speaker will have around 10 minutes to present, to have more time for debates in the second part of this panel. The online participant can address questions to our speakers in the chat. There will be a Q&A session in the end of this panel. So now we're going to go to the first speaker. I will give the floor to Ms. Yvonne Serato, Assistant Legal Attaché for Cyber Investigations from the Embassy of the United States of America in Romania. So Ms. Serato, the floor is yours.
To home.
Well, it's coming up. So basically, we all understand, here we go. So we all understand that the cyber threat is a global threat, and it involves all countries, all agencies. It is expanding at a very, very high rate. And so recognizing this, what we did in the FBI is we formed this task force. It's a joint agency task force, and it covers a lot of agencies that we have as members. It's our approach to cyber threats and doing a whole of government approach into addressing the threat. The reason being is that we need to be effective and efficient. We need to react quickly. Cyber has turned into a reactive crime, but staying on top of it through awareness and also being able to collaborate with other agencies, we formed this whole of government approach, therefore this task force. It was established in 2008 through the National Security Presidential Directive. As you can see, these are all different agencies, a lot of Department of Defense, only because they are targeted a lot. We also have, as you can see, Postal, we have NASA, a lot of government agencies really. And also, more importantly, some to the right is the international partners. There's a lot of international partners, including Romania. We have a great, great collaboration with Romania, and we recognize that in working closely with international partners, with Romanians, the British, Australians, even Ukrainians, everywhere, is that's the way that we can address our cyber threat. And so this is how we establish it. In addition, this crimes task force, everybody is actually physically located in a building. So each of those agencies have a representative. They sit in this building. And so as soon as we see or hear or are aware of any cyber attack, it is so much easier to exchange information and collaborate so much faster by having this task force. So that's our approach to dealing with it. If you have any questions, but anyway, that's how we think it's so far it's been working very, very effectively. Again, also very efficient through exchange of information, and we can address both national security cyber threats as well as criminal threats that include ransomware or threat or espionage, economic espionage. Thank you.
You want to have a question?
Thank you very much.
You want to have a question, if you allow me?
Sure.
Okay. Is the private sector represented in this joint task force?
This task force is primarily government agencies as well as state and local. But what we do is we have collaboration with the NCI-JTF as well, which is this one, and SURFU, and that's the private sector where it's banks, antivirus companies, technology. It's another separate agency or organization, and we have a permanent FBI presence in that private sector coalition.
If the NCI-JTF reaches to some conclusion that they need in their investigation the support of the private or the support of the academia, is it possible to have this type of cooperation, or
oh, absolutely.
How do you proceed with that?
Absolutely. If we do, and also at each FBI office in the United States, we have a program called InfraGuard. That's basically our outreach to private sector, but it's an organization in each state, and that's all private sector. But now that we have a close relationship with these different companies, should an attack happen, and they always do, of course, then we can always reach out easily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you also, Mr. Serato. As you mentioned, the cyber threats are global threats, and we need cooperation to fight against them. We need cooperation among public institutions, private companies, universities, and of course, NGOs. I'm glad you presented the National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force with also many international partners. And I think also that international cooperation is the key to fight cybercrime. So thank you one more time. Now I'm going to go to the next speaker, and I'll give the floor to Mr. Virgil Spiridon, Head of Operations of the Cybercrime Program Office of the Council of Europe, CIPRO. Mr. Spiridon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this event. And bear with me for a few seconds. I've prepared a few slides for today. Let me see if I manage to display my presentation.
In the right part of the mic, button, and there is the share content button. Yes,
yes.
now we can see
Thank you. Let me see if I can put it in the slideshow. Is it okay now? Can you see it?
Yeah, is it in full screen?
Okay. Thank you. For the next 10 minutes, because I understood the constraints with the time. So for the next 10 minutes, I will be touching upon the Council of Europe Global Action on cybercrime, which is rather focused on capacity building. And moreover, I will try to address also the legislative response to the cybercrime challenges. Few words about the Council of Europe approach on cybercrime, which is based on three main pillars. First is with the legislation. So for us, the Budapest Convention is the instrument, the legal instrument which we are promoting, and it's actually the most relevant international standard on legislation on cybercrime and electronic evidence. This is also an operational treaty because facilitates the cooperation among parties to the Budapest Convention and also contains a channel for cooperation among the parties. There are also procedural powers covered by the Budapest Convention and also some provisions on the international cooperation. On the legislation, actually, we can work with any country in the world, and of course, countries willing to follow the human rights approach. The second pillar is the Cybercrime Convention Committee, which is a specialized body and also a follow-up mechanism for assessing the implementation of the Budapest Convention among the parties. And this is important because representatives from the parties to the Budapest Convention, they can take up different issues on cybercrime challenges and trying to find some solutions. And just to give you a flavor of the work of the TCY, it's about the guidance notes, which are documents to complement in a way the provisions from the Budapest Convention in the sense of explaining how they apply to different, let's say, illegal activities on cybercrime or related to cybercrime, like I don't know, terrorism, like election interference, and also to interpret further some of the provision from the Budapest Convention. For the last more than 3 years, the main undertake for the TCY was the preparation of the second additional protocol to the Budapest Convention, but I will come back to that in a bit. And the third pillar is the office, the Cybercrime Program Office, which was established in 2014. It's based here in Bucharest, Romania, and it's a global leader on the cybercrime capacity building, a unique initiative at the international level. And just to give you an example of our work, so in the office we have under implementation 5 projects, capacity building projects. Some of them are global projects with a total budget of more than 38 million euros. And for instance, in the last year, we implemented more than 390 activities which are supported by this office. And actually, we've been engaged with more than 150 countries. I said that the Budapest Convention is the most relevant international standard on cybercrime and electronic evidence. And let me explain a bit on how the Budapest Convention can address the challenges faced by the countries in this pandemic period. And you may see on the left side of the screen some of the offenses committed in this period, like phishing, ransomware, attacks, fraud schemes, and also misinformation, fake news. All these are related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are not new illegal activities. They were there even before. It's just that they were adapted to the given context, and the criminals actually took benefit of the pandemic. But all of them are covered everything is covered by the Budapest Convention when it comes to the substantive part. Moreover, there is also the protocol on xenophobia to complement, and also guidance notes, which I mentioned before as documents to complement covered by the Budapest Convention, and they are actually instruments for the criminal justice authorities to get access to electronic evidence, because we are talking about expedited preservation, production orders, search and seizures on the computers and devices, and also interception of data. So they are relevant not only on cybercrime investigations, they are also relevant in other investigations where electronic evidence are present. And therefore, the relevance of the Budapest Convention, it's not only for cybercrime, it goes even beyond. There are also safeguards, because it's important for the convention to ensure that the countries and the authorities from the countries would not violate these procedural powers and will abuse them. With the guidance notes I already mentioned, so there are explanations on some of the provisions, how they are interpreted, how they can be applied in different circumstances. And also international cooperation, and as I said before, there are provisions for facilitating the international cooperation, but also a channel which is called 24/7 contact point to facilitate the expedited cooperation on cybercrime and electronic evidence, and therefore used not only in cybercrime investigations. An also important point for my presentation from today is to explain about the second additional protocol. There are a lot of questions at the international level about the legal framework, the international legal framework, whether this is enough for what is happening now on cybercrime at the global level, regional level, and also national level, whether another instrument is needed, whether new offenses to be added. I think I explained also with what is happening now in this pandemic period with all the offenses and how the Budapest Convention covers all of them. But the idea is also to discuss about the legal instruments which are available at the international level for the countries for an enhanced cooperation on cybercrime and exchanging of electronic evidence. And I guess here the answer is there is still room for improvement. And the second additional protocol is just to reinforce the enhanced cooperation, international cooperation on cybercrime and electronic evidence. We'll address to criminal justice scope, and will be for criminal investigations and proceedings on cybercrime and electronic evidence. Few of the reasons which and the arguments which were discussed before deciding to move ahead with the negotiations of the protocol, and just a bit of context here, because when it comes to cybercrime investigations, and not only, we are discussing about different categories of data as being useful for investigators, like subscriber data, traffic data, content data. Here there is not an harmonized approach on the countries on how authorities can get access to these categories of data, who is authorizing the access, and even more, what is happening and what is the procedure to get access to data if they are abroad. Then it's about the mutual legal assistance, which is the framework for cooperation for exchanging evidence between countries. And when it comes to cybercrime and electronic evidence, I think this instrument is not necessarily responding to the current needs, because there is the data on the system is volatile. It stays only for limited period, and then also there are different tools for criminals to even delete their traces. So the authorities, they need to get access quickly, and the MLA process is still slow. when it comes to cybercrime and electronic evidence. And then it's about the location of the data and transborder access. Location, even for providers who are the owners, so online service providers who are the owners of data, they might not know where the data is located in case you want to address a request to them. Also transborder, there is a provision in the Budapest Convention about transborder access, but these been interpreted and transposed in different way in the countries, and it's not a clear framework and a harmonized framework among parties to the Budapest Convention. And then the voluntary disclosure of data by US service providers versus no disclosure, no voluntary disclosure of data by EU providers. And even here there are discussions. Let's say the US providers, they are more cooperative, they have instruments in place to allow authorities to request data. But even if authorities will get this data, in some countries they cannot be used as evidence, right? Then you need to have a legal framework in place in order to use this as evidence. Then emergency procedures. In some countries, it's difficult to implement that and simply doesn't work. And we can give us an example, the Charles Hebdo attack, terrorist attack. We are all aware of that. And how important was to get access to data immediately from the providers to learn more about the communication between the members of the terrorist group. So these legal instruments will be very much useful also in these circumstances. And then data protection, and which are not completely enforced. And the last, in the last slide about the provisions and from the second additional protocol, the negotiations were completed, and now the protocol is with the internal approval of the Council of Europe, and hopefully in November it will be presented, and next March there will be the official opening for the signature for the countries who are interested to join the second additional protocol. Just very brief about the provisions from the second additional protocol. There will be actually provisions to enhance the cooperation between governments, like MLA in mutual, emergency mutual legal assistance or emergency situations, joint investigation teams. Yes, in Europe we have these provisions in place. We apply them. But what happens when a new country needs to work with a third country, and these provisions will not apply? Then the second additional protocol will be an extension and will support in this respect. Then will be also provisions for, and this is the novelty actually of the protocol, provisions for cooperation between government and private sector, like an authority from Romania or any other country who is interested to get access to data from a online service provider who is based on a different country. Then with the new legal instruments provided by the second additional protocol, a direct request from the authorities from Romania can be sent to the provider from another party. So this is mainly the novelty. And as I said, I think that with this second additional protocol, countries will be in a better position to carry out investigation, transborder investigations on cybercrime, and not only, and will have access to, quick access to data shared abroad. Thank you very much, and I'll stop sharing here, and if there are questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Spiridon, for presenting the Council of Europe approach for fighting cybercrime. You underlined the importance of legislation, cybercrime standards, and capacity building in this area. I think also that the second additional protocol of the Budapest Convention will be very important to enhance cooperation in fighting cybercrime. So thank you for your presentation. I will now go to the next speaker, Mr. Philip Aman, the Head of Expertise and Stakeholder Management at the European Cybercrime Center, EC3, from Europol. So, Mr. Aman, you have the floor.
Thank you, and can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, and my apologies for being late, but you know, I had a little bit of a stress situation now because I had it in my calendar for an hour later, obviously not looking at the time zone, so my apologies for that, but thanks for, you know, reminding me that I should join you. I'll just, I'm trying to share my presentation. I have the desktop, which is probably not helpful. Oh,
yes, we can see your desktop, and now your presentation.
Parfait.
It's in full mode now.
I have about 10 minutes, right?
Right.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'll stick to that. And again, thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you very much for, you know, giving us the opportunity to provide the law enforcement angle when it comes to tackling cybercrime and, you know, really explaining how we are successful because of our cooperation model. So I work for Europol, obviously, you know, the EU law enforcement agency. And I think what's important there, when we don't start our own investigations, we don't have policing powers per se, but I think we're very successful in applying the platform economy principle to law enforcement, meaning we're here to provide a service to member states. We're here to bring all the relevant networks and stakeholders together. And I think looking at sort of our track record, I think we've been quite successful in doing so, in helping member states and non-EU partners with an operational agreement in combating cybercrime, and hopefully also help, you know, increase cybersecurity by doing so. And, you know, you see some of the key services that we provide. Obviously, it's key expertise in different areas, be it, you know, cryptocurrencies or combating the criminal abuse of encryption, or, you know, and the many different crime areas that we support, be it money laundering, fraud. So the idea is to provide top expertise to member states so that member states don't have to build up the same expertise 27 times. Obviously, you know, our raison d'etre is to provide operational support. This is one of our key services, but we also, you know, we get information from the member states and non-EU partners, and we can provide, you know, the analysis and a very sort of broad intelligence picture of the threats and trends when it comes to cybercrime. Obviously, that's all happening through secure exchange systems. But then most importantly, we have a network of liaison officers, not just from the 27 EU member states, but also from all those non-EU partners who are present physically in the building. And that's another huge, you know, added value that we have as an organization, because it just helps to build up that trust relationship, you know, to have those short communication channels between those partners. But when it comes to cooperation, I think, you know, I mentioned the network of liaison officers. You know, the European Cybercrime Center was established in January 2013, and already at the time, the idea was that, you know, we need to have built into the organization, built into the center, you know, all those necessary networks that we need to work with. But what we realized in 2014 is that, you know, a lot of those experts coming from the member states are not necessarily cybercrime investigators. They're not necessarily cyber experts. So in 2014, we established a joint cybercrime action task force. And this was really from, you know, a number of EU member states, but also non-EU partners. And the idea was to get people who are cybercrime investigators, who now physically sit together in the building. And we just had a new member join us, Belgium. But look at this, you know, it's now, you know, 20 different law enforcement agencies from 17 different countries, which includes 7 non-EU countries. So that's the US, currently present with 3 different agencies, which I think also is testimony to the usefulness of that platform. But, you know, we have you know, Canada there, we have, you know, a lot of non-EU countries there, meaning it really is quite an international platform and quite unique in the area of law enforcement. You see, you know, it's chaired, we give the platform a home, so it's attached to the EC3, but it's really member state led, it's intelligence led, and the whole idea is to coordinate, prioritize operational action against cybercrime. And if you look at some of the statistics, 2020, considering that we've all, gone through very difficult times in that year, and it's still going on, they were still able to complete 23 operational actions, and you see some of the press releases there. So I think it's fair to say that all the relevant big operations that we've supported over the last few years, they all had an involvement from the Joint Cybercrime Action Task Force. So for us, a hugely important platform, and again, it shows you need to have that international network to be successful in combating cybercrime, because I don't have to repeat that, but it is borderless. It's typically 2, 3, or 4 different jurisdictions that are involved when you support a big international case. So we need to have that network. But also we work very closely with industry. We currently have 3 different advisory groups with about 80 different experts at a very high level in their organizations, because we want people who can actually do something, control resources. And we've invested a lot of time and resources into that to make those partnerships successful and result-oriented. So we have, for instance, annual work plans where we collectively agree on what we want to deliver. And that could be, a policy proposal, that could be policy input, that could be a training activity, that could be the development of a tool, or in many cases, those partners support our operational activities as well. So really hugely important for us to work with industry, but also with academia. You see, a lot of the big players there, and we try to also, evaluate their participation. So every 2 years, we're going to, assess how good the participation was, and then if it wasn't good, then we'll probably not extend the participation. But the point being that we need to have that cooperation, but we also need to have a cooperation that is actually result focused. And again, I think we've been quite successful in leveraging that partnership. So apart from that, we also work very hard on understanding what the threats and trends are, what has happened, but also to the extent possible, predict the future and what's going to happen. Again, with the idea of informing, ideally, instead of a reactive, a more proactive approach, and also help law enforcement colleagues in the member states and non-EU partners to prioritize their actions. Those are the key threats from last year. This is our annual strategic flagship report, the Internet Organized Crime Threat Assessment Report, available on our website. It's a predominantly law enforcement specific view on the cybercrime landscape in the EU, but enhanced with input from industry and academia. Well, what you see there is, from last year, this year's report will be published on the 11th of November. No huge changes there, but definitely, ransomware is still one of the main threats, a huge increase in mobile malware. And then we have a number of sort of cross-cutting facilitating factors such as social engineering, the abuse of cryptocurrencies, abuse of privacy-enhancing technologies. What we've seen last year definitely was criminals being very agile and quick in abusing the pandemic to, use this as a narrative for their attacks. Now, if that's, if you will, sort of the silver standard, if you will, then really the gold standard for us is to have and support operational activities. And I think one of the key operations this year was the takedown of Emotet. Emotet, a very prolific botnet and a perfect example of the crime as a service model. So this was a criminal network of infected machines globally that was offered to other criminals to install malware, to install ransomware. And, I think about 4 years ago, it was the first time we learned about Emotet. At the time, it was a fairly small malware targeting the financial sector. And then over the years, it grew into this massive network. And just looking, in 2019 alone, it was estimated about 60% or 61% of all emails globally with a malicious attachment were coming through the Emotet network. So it took about 3 years, and you see that international collaboration network again, 3 years to have the successful operation in January. And again, we used, under leadership of Netherlands, France, Germany, and all the other participating countries. And we used also new legislation in Germany and Ukraine, or the member states, decided to use that and have a sort of more innovative approach, using new legislation and working with industry to actually, neutralize the infected machines, the malware sitting on those machines. And I think that was quite a unique approach. We had different teams at the time in January, one just focusing on taking down the infrastructure, one focusing on the cryptocurrency transactions, and one team focusing on actually going after the bad guys. So hugely successful, but again, I think a testimony to what you can achieve if you work together internationally. Of course, as you can probably imagine, it's one of the networks out there. We're not resting. We just had another big success in October. So the work continues, but again, it's only possible because we have that strong and great cooperation with law enforcement agencies, but also interested academia. And of course, we also have, very strong and, close cooperation with the CERT community and the judiciary. But, really, if that's the gold standard, and obviously for us, the platinum standard is to, if we can prevent a crime from happening, that's the ideal situation. And I think one of the best examples that we have in terms of public-private partnership and awareness, prevention, awareness, and victim mitigation is our No More Ransom initiative. If you're not aware of that, it's nomoreransom.org, started about 5 years ago. And the idea was to have, with 2 industry partners and the Dutch police, a place where we can offer tools and private keys to victims of ransomware. Now, fast forward 5 years, this is now available in 37 different languages. We have more than 170 different partners. By the way, if you want to join it, support it, reach out to us. It's a fairly easy process to get involved. But the key point is we currently have more than 120 different decryption tools that we can offer for free to decrypt currently more than 150 different ransomware families. We did, in July, we had our 5th anniversary. We did a very conservative estimate, and we've been able to help within 5 years more than 6.2 million victims. And that's just not individuals. That's also whole organizations that have been able to decrypt their data for free. And most importantly, we've been able to stop more than $900 million of ransomware payments going into the hands of criminals. I think that's a huge achievement and a testimony to the power of, public-private partnership. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's available, like I said, in 37 different languages. It's a free resource. Please do consider it, and do consider also joining it. And so I'm coming to the end now, and this is really just to sum it up. I think from a law enforcement perspective, combating cybercrime, no agency can do it on its own. No country can do it on its own. We need to have that cooperation, those networks, not just within law enforcement, but also with the CERT community. Hugely important to us. We have an annual workshop where we always try to bring together CERT and law enforcement representatives to have exchanges and talk to each other, have training courses and whatnot. Also work with the private sector, industry, and academia. And with that, we can help and build up that network to defeat the other network. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raman. Thank you for presenting the Europol's European Cybercrime Center mission to fight cybercrime, which is quite difficult in this time. I saw more and more completed operational actions, so I have to congratulate you for this. So like you wrote, there is no time to rest from this point of view. You underlined also the importance of international cooperation, public-private partnerships, and also the cooperation with academia. And as you said, we need to have a proactive approach, not only to be reactive. I hardly wait to see the next Europol annual report, IOCTA 2021. I read, and it was very interesting, IOCTA 2020, and I saw something really interesting from this point of view. And if we have time, I would like to debate this later. Thank you one more time. And now we're going to go to the next speaker, which will be Mr. Ionuț Marcu, Chief Prosecutor Cybercrime from the Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism, DICOT. Mr. Marcu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Ionuț Marcu. I'm working as a prosecutor within DICOT. I'm the head of the Service for Combating Cybercrime. I would like to tell you a few words about the threats we are facing with this year, and also briefly to present the most important cases we investigated this year. So just let me display my presentation. That is brief. Can you see it? It's okay?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. So the things haven't changed much since last year. So we are facing the same challenges. Ransomware attacks remain a priority threat. We have some ongoing investigations where we managed to identify some real IP addresses linked to some currency wallets. We issued a lot of preservation requests and European investigations order. And in the end, we got some Russian identities. We are still waiting for the information, so there are ongoing cases. Also, the number of child pornography materials detected continues to increase, enhanced by the COVID pandemic. Also, in this period, the live streaming of child sexual abuse increased, also because of the pandemic. The use of encrypted chat applications makes it more difficult for law enforcement to detect and to investigate online child sexual abuse activities. Also, social engineering remains a top threat. The majority of social engineering and phishing attacks are successful, in my opinion, due to the human weaknesses and due to insufficient awareness of users. Fraud is still one of the most common crime in 2021. For example, in Romania we have OLX frauds. There are hundreds of complaints and dozens of files all over the country. Phishing is also present this year. I would like to present a phishing case that took place last year, and the investigation is still ongoing. So last year, within a joint investigation team, together with the Lithuanian and the Estonian authorities, we managed to dismantle an organized criminal group specialized in phishing and fraudulent financial activities. The members of the criminal group committed identity theft and determined bank customers in several countries into revealing their access credentials online via text messages containing links to cloned bank sites. Subsequently, the perpetrators accessing the victims' accounts and making fraudulent transfers into specially created accounts they directly controlled. The fraud started in February last year and lasted in various waves until the action day that took place in September last year. Almost 600 persons, out of which more than 100 in Lithuania and nearly 500 in Estonia, fell victim to the organized group members. The victims were mostly natural persons, but also companies, with damages in both countries amounting to cover 200,000 euros. Additional bank transfers worth approximately 450,000 euros into the organized groups were stopped by the banks, though they managed to stop the transfers. For their fraud, the suspects made counterfeit versions of several bank sites. After that, they were sending SMS and other messages to customers in their bank application on mobile phones. So the investigation is still ongoing as we took over new investigations started in Lithuania and Luxembourg. So this was an important case. And another one, it's about StreamSwap. Stream swapping has also increased this year. And we managed to dismantle an organized group specialized in SIM replacement. Fraudsters targeted Vodafone company and famous persons from Romania through social engineering and data breaches. The fraudsters obtained access to victims' phone numbers. Using two-step authenticators, stored data from email account was breached. So the criminals gained full access to the computer or mobile devices, and consequently to the stored on the device's personal data. Through use of the personal data, the perpetrators transferred money from the electronic bank accounts to bank accounts controlled by themselves or their accomplices. The funds were transferred to money mule fintech companies' accounts. The proceeds of the crime, it is close to 100,000 euro. This is a map of the main suspect, and the arrows, the links with the victims and with the application he managed to access illegally. Okay, so the operation took place on November 18, 2020. Another two important cases are related to money laundering. In July this year, the court dismantled an organized group specialized in laundering the money resulting from computer frauds committed against public authorities mainly, and institutions from Romania and from all over Europe, especially from Spain. From 2016 until July 2021, hundreds of people from Romania were recruited in order to open bank accounts in Romania, Spain, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, using their identities and also fake documents through which the amounts of money coming from criminal activities were laundered. Money was transferred by the victims into the bank accounts held by the money mules after being misled by the criminals. After the money came into these accounts, it was transferred in the same day into other accounts opened in Romania and Hungary, and withdrawn immediately from the ATMs in Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary. Almost 300 suspects were brought for hearings, and 8 members of the group were arrested so far, so we are looking for others. Upon the criminal who performed the bank transfer were found 224 mobile phones and 770 SIM cards. Many of they are still arrested, many of them confessed. This is the situation of the proceeds of the crimes. There are huge amounts of money, public money. Another one took place in August this year. So we performed 33 house searches in Romania, Ireland, and Netherlands. The investigation concerns an organized group executing well-organized criminal activity of online fraud, both prior to the pandemic, scamming companies by illegally offering other fictitious products for sale online. And after the debut of the pandemic, they switched the fraudulent online offers to various medical equipment necessary for the prevention of the disease. The resulting funds were subsequently laundered through a chain of accounts controlled by the organized group, including by use of false identities. The current estimation of the proceeds of crime amounts, it is close to 1 million euros. And the injured party are companies from 20 states worldwide. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you also, Mr. Marco, for presenting the cybercrime trends in the 2021 and some important case studies related to phishing attacks and money laundering. Indeed, as you said, phishing attacks are more and more complex and difficult to be detected by the victims. Thank you one more time for your presentation. And now the next speaker, last but not least, will be Mr. Cătălin Zetu, head of the Cyber Attacks Bureau within the Romanian Police. Mr. Zetu, the floor is yours.
Hello, Cosmin. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much to CERT or to new, let's say, institution that was just created, the directorate representatives for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to take part of this, let's say, event. And hopefully for today, I will provide some insight on a very serious threat. And I think one of the most serious cybercrime threats that was identified, not just at the Europe level, but I think worldwide. So with your permission, I will start sharing my presentation. I have a few slides. Just a second. Seems I cannot find the PowerPoint. Okay, yeah. Let me know if you can see this.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
So yeah, I know the time is pretty limited, so I would try to be brief because I have quite a few slides. But as I said, I think it's very important to have some open discussions about ransomware, which is considered like the biggest threat all over the world, with very, let's say, damaging attacks in the last years. And I think it's very important for us as law enforcement agencies, to take a stand on this kind of attacks, but also to have a discussion between, let's say, the professionals, and to see what is the key on tackling this attack. Because just from a law enforcement perspective, I think things cannot be addressed like that. So. Going forward, this is definitely not something new. Even if in the last years it was highly publicized, the ransomware attacks, because due to the, let's say, attacks notoriety, or let's say the victim notoriety, and media made it known for the society. But the first reported ransomware attack is dated more than 30 years ago. So you see, during the years, let's say, lots of things changed in the functionality and the complexity of the ransomware families, and nowadays becoming very serious and alarming scaling threat. And I will point out, let's say, some steps, or let's say parts of ransomware identity when things may got worse. So I think one of the key changes with the ransomware landscape is when the perpetrators made it available as a service. So let's say criminal masterminds, they organized an affiliation model for ransomware ecosystem, and basically everyone for a percentage from the attack, from the ransom they would gain, they can be introduced in this affiliation model, and you'll get basically a platform, web platform, where you log in and you can manage your attacks from there. Everything is done in a very automated fashion, and also the profit is automatically split among, let's say, the creators of the ransomware and the ones that are disseminating the malicious applications. And this made it available for quite a lot of users. There are known ransomware families with more than 100 affiliates. So imagine that there are more than 100 known ransomware families today. So imagine the number of the criminals that are using the ransomware threat. And with the help of, let's say, specialized hacking forums, the dissemination process of ransomware kits became well spread and well known among the community, and the attacks were more easily to deploy by, let's say, not so technical advanced actors. Again, another game changer in the ransomware ecosystem was the big game hunting. A few years back, we could see attacks against residential computers and normal users being attacked with ransomware and infected with ransomware. Around 2018, criminals understood that they would need to focus or have their, let's say, attack vectors orientated towards, let's say, bigger players, and they start targeting large networks. And that way, they surely got a larger profit. And that's why also, because network systems are hosting also a very important and sensitive data, many times crucial for, let's say, the commercial activity or the activity that is performed by the company. And that's why a large percentage of the companies that are being affected by ransomware are choosing to pay the ransom. And many times the ransom is very high. And lately we're hearing about, let's say, very large numbers in terms of ransom. I think the biggest ransom demand was 70 millions. Also, different actors, a different, let's say, business area is now on the rise. The business that is selling the access into the corporate networks, and accessing such a network can be sold with a couple of hundreds of thousands till a couple of millions. Also, another key point is the fact that the criminals behind the ransomware attacks are using different techniques in order to persuade the victims into paying the ransom. So they are using extortion and lately also double extortion techniques. So they are trying to post, let's say, sensitive documents that were exfiltrated from the networks of the victims and make them, let's say, publicly available on different blogs or publicly available websites. And also, some of them made some auction possibilities for such dumps of data. And also, lately, the ransomware actors are demanding also a payment in order for the criminals to destroy, let's say, the exfiltrated files. Another extortion technique is calling the management of the companies and making different threats on public for the publish of the exfiltrated data and so on. Again, something quite new. Seen with the ransomware attacks. Within the management panel of the ransomware families, there are also new features as DDoS attacks against the company, victimized company networks. In that way, the actors put more pressure on the management of the companies to get the payment done. Lately we're seeing bigger and bigger companies, big names being victimized on ransomware, and at some point is, I think, valid assumption that ransomware is also a national security threat. And these are some few points that are in concordance with what I'm saying, and national security threat. So we had attacks against critical infrastructure. We saw in the last years quite a few of those. Risks to public health, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic. Multiple hospitals being victimized, including in Romania. Also, the Ireland public health system was victimized by Conti ransomware. For sure, we can see quite a lot of activity of the ransomware actors in this sector. Diversion of vital public resources. Obviously, we could see a lot of municipalities and IT infrastructure of municipalities being kept hostage by ransomware attacks, and the payment of such a ransom could also mean, let's say, public budget loss of data and privacy. Obviously, multiple high-value victims. They got quite a lot of sensitive files exfiltrated and also made it publicly on different blogs. And also disruption of schools and colleges. Again, lots of attacks happening also in the learning sector. Cyber insurance and ransomware, this was definitely a game changer, and in the same time offers a sense of security for the companies, but in the same time, it's a known fact that ransomware actors, when they are targeting, let's say, a specific company, they are also checking if they have any cyber insurance in place. In that way, they have a payment guaranteed, and this can make a company, let's say, more susceptible victim or target. But in the same time, the cyber insurance policies oblige the companies to take more serious cybersecurity measures. Those are, let's say, some attacks that happened this year, and definitely we can see very high-profile names there, large networks, sensitive data, and so on. So it seems like this year is definitely a prolific one for the ransomware criminals, and in the same time, we're not necessarily seeing, let's say, a decrease of the attacks, or rather the involvement of cyber criminals in such activities. As you see, those are some figures, some statistics, and you see the estimated cost of ransomware to organizations worldwide. So for 2021 already is up to $20 billion, which is a very, very high number. And again, from the Chainalysis Crypto Crime Report for 2021, we see a huge increase in the use of cryptocurrencies received by ransomware addresses in 2020. So it's up to $350 million equivalent in cryptocurrencies. What's next in the ransomware world? We're seeing now like very interesting discussions on the, let's say, leaders of the planet. President Biden discussing with President Putin about the ransomware attacks, and definitely very interesting discussions to follow and see, let's say, how the geopolitical situation can influence also the ransomware environment. Also, some good news around, let's say, the law enforcement perspectives. More and more, let's say, ransomware actors being targeted and arrests in different areas of the world, and hopefully in the future we'll see more headlines like that. And yeah, I think that was let's say some ideas for the discussions today. I think there are some ideas that we all, as let's say, cybersecurity, cybercrime professionals, need to have in mind. And this is something, ransomware is definitely a topic that would be followed in years to come. And we definitely need to keep a close eye on it.
Thank you, Mr. Zetu, for presenting the most serious cybercrime threat, which is the ransomware attack. You presented the ransomware as a service model and the new generation of ransomware that tried to exfiltrate the data before encryption in order for cybercriminals to blackmail their victims. So thank you one more time. Now we're gonna start the Q&A session, so the participants can address questions to speakers. The online participants also can write the questions in the chat. We saw many case studies presented which demonstrated the necessity and the effectiveness of international law enforcement cooperation in tackling cybercrime, as well as the vital role played by private-public partnerships in this area. I saw something very interesting in the latest Europol annual report, IOCTA 2020, and there we saw that the cybercrime groups behind the trio Ryuk ransomware, TrickBot, and Emotet malware started to cooperate with each other. So this relationship between Emotet, Ryuk, and TrickBot is considered one of the most notable in the cybercrime world. So well-organized criminal groups who engage in different kinds of malware like ransomware have been observed by the European law enforcement agencies to cooperate over malware, infrastructure, and money laundering activities. So lately, more and more cybercrime groups started to cooperate for improving their criminal activity, which is not very good from the law enforcement point of view. So my questions to the speakers: how can we improve the cooperation, especially the international cooperation in fighting cybercrime? Because lately the cybercrime groups also started to cooperate. Who would like to respond to this question? So how can we improve this cooperation among public institutions, private companies, academia, in order to improve the fighting to cybercrime phenomenon? Please, Mr. Roman.
Thank you. I'm happy to give a first sort of view on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the other panelists. I think the general challenges that we see when it comes to cooperation and exchanging information is, of course, the basic questions: what's the legal basis? What kind of data information are we going to share? For what purpose? Who's got access to that? In what format? What tools are we going to use? And I think, if you turn this around, I think those are the kind of questions that we need to answer. And we've heard, the good work that is going on the Budapest Convention, and other sort of frameworks that we can also use to further improve our cooperation. I think it's really a whole range of things that we can look at. And from our perspective, usually what works best is, if there's clarity on the common goal, what we try to achieve, when there's clarity on the legal basis, when there's clarity on, there's trust, and we know, who's got access to the information, what happened to that. That's when it works best. It's also, a function of the group size. Typically what we see is if there are too many people, too many organizations involved, then usually that's when it gets a little bit more difficult to establish that trust relationship. But I think, so if you can further continue, improving, clarifying the legal basis, clarifying the purpose for which we share and exchange information, further build the trust, I think that in turn will further improve international cooperation. I think, there's sort of a common understanding now, like I said initially, that we need to have that network in place. The realization, the very sad realization, if you will, is that we can't, nobody can do it on their own. We need to have that network. And as you said, and as we know, criminals, yes, they cooperate. They have a different type of cooperation. It's usually more transactional. But of course, they don't have to respect any, legal or other kind of barriers. They just go ahead, for their financial gain usually. And we need to become equally agile, if I can use that term, in our reaction. So that requires, a fit for purpose legal framework. And again, it's great to see the great work that is being done on the Budapest Convention, but equally, having the right tools, the right standards, it's a whole mix of things that I think we need to look at. But I personally believe we're going into the right direction, also because, we've talked about at length about ransomware, and I think we're all now realizing that this is a threat that goes way beyond the financial damage, targeting critical infrastructure, the healthcare sector. So we also have that political support now, which I think is also a key element in the response. But I'm sure other panelists have other ideas as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other opinions? Please, Mr. Spiridon.
Thank you very much. I cannot agree more with what Philip said about the understanding of the countries that this cooperation should be seen, not only like addressing your national issue or by solving your case. It's also the contribution to the global effort to fight against cybercrime, right? Indeed, the legislation, and also Philip mentioned, I also mentioned in my presentation, legislation is very important. To have a legal framework in place is very important, but it's not enough. And then you should try to build, this is what we are trying to support countries, to build capacities and to fight against cybercrime. And this, needs to start with a sort of strategic approach, a strategy, a policy for cybercrime. Because also Cătălin said, and the prosecutor from Romania, about the trends, which are national trends, but also they are part of the global trends. So this is so fighting against cybercrime, it's a continuous process. And we saw also the evolution of the trends and threats, and these will go on. Therefore, we need to be prepared with the capacities, and we should invest on the capacity building for the countries which are, let's say, not so developed, to understand that they need to develop this strategy in place and not to, look at cybercrime like something which can be addressed on the ad hoc basis. And for strategic approach, you need to have some elements like having an understanding on the cybercrime situation from your country, having the training programs in place, training strategies in place for law enforcement, prosecutors, magistrates. So once we try to support countries to develop these capacities, to have legislation in place, then it's easy because, as I said, for the EU countries, most of them, they have legislation, they have capacities, but we see that threats coming from other jurisdictions or the need to work with other countries outside EU because we need to get access to data which is stored in different jurisdictions. So working together, developing capacities, working with the law enforcement authorities, with international organizations, with law enforcement agencies like Europol, that will be the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you also. Any other opinions on this topic? I saw a comment from Herrera, Moscardi, also awareness in addition to training. So yes, training is very important. Cyber awareness also is very important. What do you think? How can we improve awareness in this field, cybersecurity awareness? Because we saw many institutions, universities, and also some private companies publish different kind of awareness measures and guides, but not all the people they understand and they apply all these measures. How can we improve the awareness in this field? What do you think? Who would like to answer in order to give us some hints regarding improving awareness? Please, Mr. Zetu.
Yes, so I think there's definitely in prevention of cybercrime is a key element within this cybercrime environment. Awareness is definitely something that we all think of. And in the last year, there were quite a lot of discussions on how can we make it better, on how can we reach let's say, more people, more internet users, more, let's say, intelligent device users, and so on. I think we also had, let's say, some research done with our prevention institute here within the police, and there were identified some very interesting aspects in regards with the use of the internet and intelligent devices across Romania. And I think one of, let's say, the most targeted part of the society, and I think the one that we should focus the most is, let's say, the youngsters, because it's both important because they have access to quite a lot of information, to, let's say, new devices with quite a lot of features and capabilities, but also, and they get exposed to quite a lot of threats, cyber threats. But in the same time, they can be very easily attracted by, let's say, this cybercrime world, where they seem to be very attracted by, let's say, hackers and hacking activities and so on. And in the online environment, there are quite a lot of channels used in this regards, and definitely quite a lot of efforts are being made into keep, let's say, the youngsters informed about the vulnerabilities that they may face within the online environment, but also the dangers that may occur with taking, let's say, an unorthodox path towards hacking. So yeah, I think one of the solutions with getting a better awareness on the cyber threats would be, let's say, materials and activities that should target different, let's say, social categories. So we shouldn't think about, let's say, a general message for the entire population, but having, let's say, more targeted approach towards different categories, youngsters, old people, let's say, IT professionals, and so on.
Thank you. This is a very good idea. So not to release only general awareness, but targeted awareness to deliver the message to different kind of groups. Also, not to forget about education. Education is also very important in fighting cybercrime. And we have many good professors involved in different kind of cybersecurity projects from academia. But from high school level, we don't have so many professors in this field. We don't have so many teachers. So I think this is an issue. Any other opinions regarding how to improve awareness, education in fighting cybercrime? Please, Mr. Aman.
Thank you. And just, I mean, that was, already quite comprehensive. And I think, it really has to, it needs to be targeted, but I think it also the general need to teach cyber safety, cyber security, at a very young age. And I think that was just mentioned. Also with a view to increasing cyber resilience, this idea that, yes, we want to improve cyber security. We want people become, smart and prevent cyber crime from happening, or them or the public or, general public from becoming a victim to cybercrime. But I think equally, we also need to collectively increase our resilience. So a general, inclusion of cyber in curricula, I think it's important, but then equally very targeted. And I think in addition to that, and this is something that we do a lot, is also having material translated into the national languages, because obviously that's when you have the biggest impact. And basically what we do is we have some standalone awareness campaigns, prevention campaigns. This goes to what, Kathleen said, for instance, on where we target specifically tech savvy young people. And basically the question is, what's it going to be? Either become a cybersecurity professional or you go down the dark route and become a cyber criminal. But also, a lot of times we always look at, whenever we support an operation activity, we look for a prevention and awareness opportunity. So it could be that we run something like a European money mule action, targeting obviously money mules, and then typically we would follow up with a awareness campaign, targeting again specifically working with financial institutions. I think the last event was supported by more than 1,000 different financial institutions throughout Europe, targeting specifically those people that are targeted by the criminals, students, older people who don't have a lot of money that may fall for those fake job advertisements. So I think that's also key. I think what remains is always the question, what's the effectiveness of that? And that's sort of the $1 million question is, you've spent that amount of money and resources, how effective was it? And that's something I think that's a tricky one. It's very hard sometimes, or difficult to make the direct connection, as whatever we've done, has it really decreased cyber criminality, which is a hard one to answer. But I think there are some ways to measure success, but I think that's a little bit of an open question and sometimes requires some convincing, for senior management to invest resources into that, because it's sometimes hard to measure the impact, but I think it's absolutely key to do that. Thanks.
Thank you also. Mr. Spiridon, would you like to add something?
Yes, thank you very much. Unfortunately, in our programs, capacity building programs on cybercrime, we don't focus much on the awareness. And I said unfortunately because we do not have enough resources and expertise. However, we encourage countries to look into this, and because it's definitely it's easy to prevent than to combat. And we encourage countries to have a sort of multidisciplinary approach with committed stakeholders. Fighting against cybercrime definitely is it's a primary mission for law enforcement authorities. However, there are others like civil society, industry, and also academia who can contribute at least to the education, to the awareness, so they can play an important role. So in addition to what the previous speakers mentioned about targeted awareness and also using resources available at the international level, we also promote the multidisciplinary approach, and because indeed it's also important who is having the lead in this awareness, and depending on the target and how the stakeholders can contribute and with what they can contribute. So that will be also important if countries would have a such approach. Thank you.
Thank you also. Some speakers presented the cybercrime trends in this year from an institutional point of view. So how do you think that the pandemic situation affected the cybercrime, and which is the main cyber threat from your point of view? I saw Mr. Zetu from the Romanian police view. The most important cyber threats is the ransomware attack. But which else cyber threat do you think it's important, and how the pandemic changed the evolution of the cyber threats, or how this pandemic changed the behavior of cyber criminals? Who would like to answer to this question? Please, Mr. Zato.
So I think, yeah, it's quite a natural shift in the pandemic times, where people needed to spend more time online, having different events in an online environment, having remote and so on. So I think also the criminals saw an opportunity in this, and they targeted, let's say, more of the regular users' online activities. For example, there is definitely an increase in towards, let's say, like e-commerce platforms being targeted, and as Mr. Marcu presented, this e-commerce platforms schemes are definitely on the rise, and it seems like it's more prevalent in the Balkan area. Also, with the pandemic, we saw different attacks against, let's say, the platforms, the online meeting platforms, so the Zoom attacks, and yeah, different platforms being attacked. Also, in regards with homeschooling or online schooling, yeah, different kinds, not sophisticated attacks, but enough to intervene with the functionality of a specific meeting or a specific platform. Again, also because people are having a bit more time spent online, also the online shopping became more popular and more frequent, and I think also the perpetrators are using the phishing schemes in order to tackle, let's say, with the credit cards used by the regular users and so on. So yeah, definitely we could see an important shift and some changes within, let's say, the cybercrime environment. those, let's say, the main areas that I could think of now that had been influenced by the COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please, Mr. Rahman.
Thank you. Just, again, to confirm what Aspen said, I think we've seen some changes very quickly. Again, Krim was being very agile, using the COVID pandemic as a narrative to improve those, targeted phishing campaigns, setting up fake websites, fake web shops, very, very quickly in reusing that. We've actually published a whole series of reports, not just looking at cybercrime, also looking at sort of the new normal after the pandemic, but also at other crime areas. So we looked, for instance, on the changes on the dark web, but also when it comes to fake counterfeit products, we've seen an immediate tick up in offers also on the dark web, but the open web as well on fake counterfeit face masks, fake test kits, fake vaccines. So again, showing that criminals are very quick in adapting the criminal business model. But also, the point being also that given that most of us had to work from home with lower security standards, increased attack surface, that also was obviously abused by cyber criminals. So again, I think the key message would be that they're very quick and agile in adapting to new circumstances, and we've seen that at least in our reporting. Again, also available on our website if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you also. Any other opinions, comments regarding this topic?
Yeah, hi.
If not, I will have a short question. We saw more sophisticated and more targeted cyber attacks lately, and more critical vulnerabilities discovered and exploited by cyber criminals. So how can we deal with all these sophisticated cyber attacks? Is the new technology an answer to this, like, for example, artificial intelligence? Because we saw, on the one hand, machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence that are used by cybersecurity experts to develop better cybersecurity solutions, but also this technology is used by cyber criminals in order to develop better cyber attacks. So how do you think this new technology will help us to combat the cyber attacks? What do you think about this?
Cosmin, Jan, just one quick question. Sorry for interrupting. Don't forget,
please, Mr. Rahman.
Yvonne has a question. So please do not.
I'm very happy,
be careful
I don't want
she cannot raise the hand. Okay?
Take up too much time, because my fellow panelists have also a lot to say. Just from my side, or our side, I should say, this is something we pay a lot of attention to as part of sort of our technology assessment, also to see, what about new technologies being abused by criminals. In fact, about a year ago, we published a report together with Trend Micro and Unicre on the potential malicious uses and abuses of artificial intelligence, is precisely looking at that question. As we start to use AI more and more, or AI-based systems more and more to increase our cyber defenses, it's fair to assume that criminals will, either target those systems or use AI themselves to improve their attacks. And we've seen that, we've seen that in the area of business email compromise, where criminals have used publicly available tools to emulate the voice of a CEO to improve the social engineering attack, and that is confirmed from many other actors, companies as well. And just recently, I heard that from an Austrian company as well, that confirmed that a kind of attack, combined with the spoofing of the phone, the telephone number. So this is happening already. This is no longer the future. Now, one of the things I wanted to say also is, when we speak about sophisticated cyber criminals, I think there is a tendency to overuse the term sophistication. I think, yes, there is a lot of sophisticated actors out there. There is a small group of cyber criminals that are very innovative. They're using, artificial intelligence. They're trying to use innovative techniques. However, I think given that a lot of those techniques, attacks that they use have been around for, years. They're using vulnerabilities that have been, known for years, and they're still there, they still work. So there's a very broad, I think, a group of cybercriminals that don't have to be sophisticated. They don't have to innovate, And it's also a question of how do you define sophisticated. I mean, if you say a SQL injection attack is sophisticated, which I would, highly challenge, that's not sophisticated. That's a well-known attack. But guess what? It still works with a lot of companies to do that. And to get people to give up their password, that's, good social engineering. Is it sophisticated? I don't know. I think we also need to be careful that, because if we label everything as sophisticated, then you also think that the answer to that has to be very sophisticated, which I don't think is the case. I think we can do by, simple things, as to say, simple cyber hygiene, having a good password policy, having multi-factor authentication. You can already increase significantly this cyber security baseline, and also prevent a lot of sort of the standard non-sophisticated cybercrime attacks from happening. Having that said, there is still a group that is sophisticated, and especially what we see, of course, is that convergence of actors, where we have state-sponsored, state-controlled actors, by day, cybercriminals by night, sharing the same TTPs. Yes, they tend to be more sophisticated, more targeted, but I would still argue that a lot of what we see, the large volume of cyber attacks, I wouldn't, classify that as sophisticated per se. But we still need to look at things like artificial intelligence, help us further improve our analysis, help us, to detect attacks sooner, especially unknown attacks. I think there's a lot of potential there. But I just want to make that point. I think we need to be careful with the term sophisticated cyber attacks. Thank you.
Indeed, simple cyber hygiene can increase a lot the level of cybersecurity. Yes. So there are interesting discussions, but unfortunately we have to end. We have just a couple of minutes. So I'd like to ask all the speakers to think about a keyword or some keywords in order to respond to the question related to the topic of this panel: how to effectively tackling cybercrime through coordinated efforts. So a couple of keywords regarding how to improve fighting cybercrime. So I'll start with Mr. Aman. Very short.
Oh, geez, I thought I would have a few more minutes to think about something smart to say. I think with replication of what I said before, I think apart from sort of the legal basis, the clarity of why we work together, I think it also needs to require, and I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, that change of mindset. The fact that, we still sometimes see that sort of isolated, behavior between the different communities, CERT community, not working with law enforcement. I think NIST 2.0, honestly, I think for us, it would be a great opportunity to formally include law enforcement. I hope this will happen. But, really change that mindset where we see, okay, CERT community cannot solve it on its own. Industry cannot do it on its own. Law enforcement, we need to work together. We need to come together. And I think that's probably the one thing I'm really looking forward to is having that change, and then obviously supported by legislation, by the tools, by, the capacities and capabilities. I think, that's an important point that I forget. So Virgil, thank you for mentioning that. And that all coming together, I think we can be really successful.
Thank you. Ms. Serato, a couple of words. How can we improve fighting cybercrime phenomenon?
Can you hear me? They can't hear me. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so it really is on the relationships, which I wanted to mention earlier, is that as far as us in the FBI is concerned, we're permanently assigned worldwide. We try, and by being around, for example, like myself as a cyber agent assigned here in Romania, I get to work face-to-face with Mr. Zetu, as well as DCUT prosecution. There's a lot of us cyber agents who are stationed worldwide, and by having that personal relationship, there's the constant exchange of information, which is quick. If an attack happens, I can easily go to Romanian authorities and get the necessary action started to address it. So again, there's a cyber agent stationed around the world. We recognize that in the FBI. So we're trying very hard to get our agents out who can only address cyber.
Thank you. Mr. Spiridon?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess I can try to summarize what I said before. I think first is for the international legal framework that can allow an enhanced cooperation on cybercrime investigations and electronic evidence. Then for the countries to have a sort of strategic approach on fighting against cybercrime, and also resources to be made available for the law enforcement authorities, because the question before was about artificial intelligence and also technology. Let's face it, cyber criminals, they are at least a step ahead the law enforcement when it comes to the access to the technology. So it's important also for law enforcement authorities to have access to the technology, and of course to think at fighting against cybercrime like a continuous process. Thank you very much.
Thank you also. Mr. Marco?
From my point of view as a practitioner, the keyword is definitely cooperation and mutual support, cooperation between judicial authorities from all over the world, and also between us and the private sector. And the criminals are moving faster, so we have to move faster too. We, as Virgil said, they are one step forward. So the cooperation is, from my point of view, is the main goal of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zeto.
So I think from a law enforcement perspective, what remains or what we can do, and hopefully we successfully do it, is to have, let's say, new innovative approaches towards investigating the new type of crime, new types of cyber crimes, and so on. And doing so, I think we may overcome, let's say, the lack of the resources and some other barriers that may hold us down against, let's say, the cyber criminals. Yeah, I think this is one of the key points that we as law enforcement can take in the fight on cybercrime. Thanks.
Thank you. So thanks to all the speakers. I think we had great discussions regarding effectively tackling cybercrime through coordinated efforts. Thanks to all the participants that joined to these discussions, and also thanks to all sponsors. Have a great day, and see you to the next panels. Thank you a lot. Have a great day. Bye-bye.